The neutral zone around Beacon Station glowed with the light of 1,000 ships. Delegates from across the galaxy had traveled here for what they called the Summit of Harmony, though harmony seemed like a distant dream right now. Ambassador Reeves sat in the human observation pod, watching the main chamber through a transparent wall. His fingers drummed against the armrest as voices rose in anger. The Drenth delegation had brought their full war council. Each warrior stood over 8 feet tall, their chitinous armor reflecting the station's pale blue lighting. General Thork slammed his primary claw against the speaking platform, creating a sound like a gunshot that made several smaller species flinch. "The mining rights belong to those strong enough to claim them," Thork declared, his translator rendering his clicks and whistles into common speech. "The outer spiral territories have no protection, no defense. They are free for the taking." Across from him, the Halcyon representative shimmered with barely contained energy. The Halcyon were beings of pure thought given physical form through concentrated light. When angry, they burned brighter. Right now, the Halcyon delegate was almost too bright to look at directly. "Your doctrine of conquest is primitive," the Halcyon said, their voice like wind chimes in a storm. "The Council established those territories as neutral grounds. Your disregard for our laws threatens the entire peace accord." The Torvak merchant prince, Olan, tried to moderate between them. His scaled hands moved in gestures of peace, his reptilian features creased with concern. "Perhaps we can negotiate a sharing arrangement. The resources could benefit all parties if we approach this with wisdom rather than weapons." Thork laughed, a harsh grinding sound. "Wisdom is what the weak call their fear of the strong." Reeves watched the exchange with growing concern. He had seen this pattern before in human history. Words leading to threats, threats leading to mobilization, mobilization leading to war. He had hoped the galaxy might be different, but it seemed some things were universal. The Halcyon delegate began to pulse with light, a sign they were preparing to leave the summit. Several other species shifted nervously. If the Halcyon withdrew their participation, the entire treaty system could collapse. The Drenth would have exactly the excuse they needed to launch their expansion. Then every screen in the chamber flashed red. The station's automated defense system had detected something approaching, something massive. The diplomatic chatter died instantly as holographic displays materialized above the central platform, showing sensor readings that made even the Drenth warriors stiffen. "Unidentified vessel approaching at .7 light speed," the station's artificial intelligence announced. "Mass equivalent to a Drenth battlecruiser. Energy signature consistent with military-grade fusion cores. Weapons systems detected." Thork's mandibles clicked together in what might have been satisfaction or concern. Who dares interrupt this summit with a show of force? The AI responded immediately. "Vessel identified. Classification: Human Federation Navy ship. Name: Resolute. Status: Battleship class." Every species in the chamber turned to look at the human observation pod. Reeves felt dozens of eyes, sensors, and perception organs focus on him. He kept his expression neutral, though his heart was racing. He had known the Resolute was in this sector, but he had not expected it to arrive at the station itself. The holographic display shifted to show visual feed. The Resolute emerged from faster-than-light travel like a predator materializing from darkness. The ship was enormous, nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern. Its hull was painted in deep gray, almost black in the void of space. Weapon ports lined its flanks, each one capable of delivering devastating firepower. Point defense turrets tracked in constant motion, ready to intercept any threat. The ship's fusion drives burned bright blue, leaving trails of ionized particles in their wake. "It appears humanity has decided to make their position clear," the Halcyon delegate said, their light dimming to a cautious amber. Thork studied the approaching vessel with the eye of a career military commander. Impressive design, efficient power distribution. Those rail-gun arrays could punch through standard shielding. The humans may be young to the galactic stage, but they understand war. Olen's scales rippled with nervous energy. Ambassador Reeves, perhaps you could explain why your government has sent a battleship to a peace summit. Reeves stood, moving to the communication panel in his pod. I assure you, the Resolute's arrival was not intended as a threat. I will contact them immediately and request clarification. Before he could open a channel, the Resolute fired its maneuvering thrusters and began a slow rotation, presenting its full profile to the station. Every weapon system was now visible. The message was clear. This ship could protect itself or destroy anything that challenged it. The gathered delegates watched in tense silence. They are requesting docking permission, the station AI reported. The Halcyon delegate pulsed with agitation. Absolutely not. We cannot allow an armed warship to dock during diplomatic proceedings. The security risk is unacceptable. If we deny them, it could be seen as an act of hostility, Olen countered. The humans are members of the Council, even if they are new members. They have the right to attend. Thork made a dismissive gesture. Let them dock. I am curious to see what the humans think they can accomplish with one ship. If they came here to threaten us, they are fools. If they came here for legitimate reasons, then we should hear them. The debate continued for several minutes, but eventually pragmatism won. The station granted docking clearance. The Resolute moved into position with surprising grace for such a large vessel, its pilots clearly skilled. Magnetic clamps engaged with heavy thuds that resonated through the station's superstructure. Reeves watched the docking procedures complete and felt a knot of anxiety in his stomach. Whatever happened next would set the tone for humanity's relationship with the wider galaxy. He just hoped Captain Foster knew what she was doing. The airlock connection light turned green. Somewhere in the station, a door was opening. The galaxy was about to meet humanity's military might face to face. Security teams rushed through the corridors of Beacon Station, their movements coordinated by decades of training. The Drenth had insisted on providing extra guards, their warriors taking positions at every intersection near the diplomatic chamber. Other species followed suit, creating a tense atmosphere of barely controlled paranoia. Everyone expected soldiers to emerge from the Resolute. Everyone expected weapons and demands, and perhaps the start of something terrible. They were all wrong. The airlock doors opened with a soft hiss of equalizing pressure. A single human stepped through, her boots making quiet sounds against the metal deck. Captain Diana Foster wore her dress uniform, dark blue with simple rank insignia on the shoulders. No armor, no visible weapons. She carried only a data tablet and wore an expression of calm professionalism that seemed almost absurd given the circumstances. Two other humans followed her, both in similar uniforms. One was a young woman with short black hair who carried a document case. The other was an older man with gray at his temples and the weathered look of someone who had spent years in deep space. Neither showed any sign of aggression. The Drenth guards had their weapons raised, crackling with energy. Foster stopped, raised her hands to show they were empty, and waited. The tension stretched like a wire about to snap. "Stand down," Thork's voice boomed through the corridor. The general himself had come to witness the arrival. His compound eyes studied Foster with an intensity that would have made most beings nervous. "Let them pass." The guards lowered their weapons but remained alert. Foster nodded her thanks and continued walking, her small escort following. They moved through the station's halls while curious aliens watched from doorways and observation windows. News of the battleship's arrival had spread quickly. By the time Foster reached the main diplomatic chamber, nearly every delegate was present. The circular room could hold thousands, and it was filling rapidly. Species that rarely attended the same gatherings now crowded together, united by curiosity and concern. Foster walked to the center of the chamber where a speaking platform rose from the floor. She placed her data tablet on the podium and looked around at the assembled aliens. Hundreds of different species, beings of flesh, energy, crystal, and forms that defied simple classification, all of them watching her. "Thank you for allowing me to address this summit," Foster began, her voice amplified by the chamber's acoustics. "I understand that the arrival of the Resolute has caused concern. That was not our intention." "Then what was your intention?" the Halcyon delegate demanded, their forms still pulsing with agitated light. "You bring a warship to a peace conference and expect us to believe it is coincidence." "Not coincidence," Foster replied. "Necessity, but not the kind you are thinking of." She activated her data tablet. Holographic projections filled the air above the platform, showing star charts of the Outer Rim territories, the same region the Council had been arguing about for weeks. "While you have been debating mining rights and territory claims, we have been monitoring a crisis that the Council seems to have overlooked." Foster highlighted 3 star systems in the projection. "These systems are home to pre-spaceflight civilizations. According to Council law, they fall under protection status. No exploitation, no interference." "Everyone knows this," Olin said, his scaled brow furrowed in confusion. "What does this have to do with your battleship?" Foster changed the display. Now it showed stellar radiation patterns, spreading from a nearby neutron star that was entering an active phase. The radiation levels were catastrophic, painting huge swaths of space in dangerous red. The star designated as Pulsar 97 went active 3 months ago. The radiation is lethal to organic life. All 3 of these protected worlds are in the kill zone. We estimate they have less than 60 days before the radiation levels make their planets uninhabitable. Silence fell over the chamber. This was news to most of the delegates. The Halcyon representative dimmed with what might have been shame. "We filed reports on this situation," the Halcyon said quietly. "The Council Committee determined that evacuation was not feasible. The populations are too large, the species too primitive to understand what was happening, the logistics too complex." "So you decided to let them die," Foster said. "Not an accusation, just a statement of fact." More silence, uncomfortable shifting among the delegates. Olen's scales changed color slightly, a sign of distress among his people. Thork stepped forward, his massive form casting shadows across the chamber floor. "Why do the humans care about primitives who do not even know you exist? What strategic value do they hold?" Foster met his gaze without flinching. "They hold the value of being alive, of having thoughts and dreams and families, of deserving a chance to survive. That is enough." She changed the holographic display again. Now it showed the interior of the Resolute, but instead of ammunition and weapons, the cargo bays were filled with supplies, medical equipment, food synthesizers, portable habitat modules, emergency power generators, everything needed to support a massive evacuation and relocation effort. "The Resolute is a battleship," Foster continued. "But battleships have cargo capacity. They have power generation. They have the ability to move quickly across vast distances. We converted everything we could. Plasma cannon power feeds now run fabrication units. Missile launch tubes deploy construction drones. Point defense systems have been reprogrammed to clear orbital debris from refugee ships." The delegates stared at the images. A warship transformed into a vessel of mercy. "We are going to save those people," Foster said simply. "With or without council approval, with or without assistance. But we thought you should know. We thought you should have the chance to help. Because that is what the council is supposed to be for, protecting those who cannot protect themselves." She deactivated the display and picked up her data tablet. "The Resolute leaves in 6 hours. Anyone who wants to verify our cargo is welcome aboard. Anyone who wants to help is welcome to join us." Foster turned and walked back toward the exit, her escort following. Behind her, the council chamber erupted into a chaos of voices, all talking at once. She did not look back. The delegation that boarded the Resolute 3 hours later was larger than Foster had expected. Olin led the Torvak contingent, his curiosity overcoming his natural merchant caution. The Halcyon sent observers, beings of light who could verify information at the quantum level and therefore could not be easily deceived. Even Thork came, though he claimed it was to assess human military capabilities rather than humanitarian ones. Foster met them at the main airlock. She had changed from her dress uniform to standard duty fatigues, practical clothing designed for work rather than ceremony. The ship around her hummed with activity as crew members rushed to complete final preparations for departure. "Welcome aboard the Resolute," Foster said. "I will show you everything, no restricted areas, no secrets, you need to see the truth." She led them through corridors that should have been lined with ammunition lockers and weapon maintenance stations. Instead, they passed storage bays filled with water purification systems and agricultural starter kits. A Torvak engineer stopped to examine one of the units, his scanner confirming it was genuine civilian equipment. "This is a terraforming seed bank," the engineer reported to Olin, "designed to establish sustainable food production in hostile environments, military-grade durability but purely civilian application." They moved deeper into the ship. The missile launch tubes that should have held ship-killer warheads instead contained compact construction drones, each one programmed with emergency shelter assembly protocols. Foster activated one to demonstrate. The drone unfolded from its storage configuration, its manipulator arms designed to weld, cut, and assemble prefabricated habitat modules. "We can deploy 200 of these simultaneously," Foster explained. "Each one can build a basic shelter for 50 people in under 4 hours. The materials are in cargo hold 3. The Halcyon observer floated closer to the drone, their energy form scanning every circuit and processing core. "This is genuine. The programming is purely constructive. There are no combat subroutines hidden in the code." Thork examined the deployment system with a tactician's eye. "You removed functional weapons to make room for toys that build houses." "We removed tools of destruction to make room for tools of survival," Foster corrected. "There is a difference." She took them to the medical bay next. What should have been a small emergency treatment center had been expanded into a full hospital. Human doctors worked alongside medical AI systems, preparing for the influx of alien patients they would soon be treating. One doctor was reviewing anatomical data on species the humans had never encountered before, studying their biology to understand how to help them. A young human medic approached Olin and held out a scanner. "Sir, would you mind? We are trying to build a medical database for Torvak physiology. If we need to treat your people, we want to do it right." Olin blinked in surprise but allowed the scan. The data flowed into the ship systems, processed and cataloged within seconds. "You are preparing to help my people. We are not the ones in danger." "Not yet," the medic said cheerfully. "But this kind of operation could have casualties, accidents, unexpected medical emergencies. Better to be prepared for everyone." They continued the tour. The main cargo holds revealed the true scale of the humanitarian effort. Deck after deck of supplies, everything from basic clothing to advanced medical equipment. Foster showed them the manifest, thousands of items carefully selected and packed for maximum efficiency. "How did you afford all this?" Olin asked, his merchant instincts finally speaking up. "These supplies represent enormous wealth." "Donations," Foster said. "When humanity learned about the crisis, the response was overwhelming. Governments contributed. Corporations donated equipment. Individual citizens sent whatever they could spare. This represents the effort of billions of humans, most of whom will never meet the people we are going to save." The Halcyon observer pulsed with confusion. "Your species mobilized this response for beings you have never encountered, who cannot repay you, who do not even know you exist. Yes. Why? Foster led them to an observation deck. Through the transparent aluminum windows, they could see Beacon Station and the gathered ships of the Council. Beyond that, the stars stretched into infinity. Because we remember what it was like to be helpless, Foster said quietly. Humanity has faced extinction events, asteroids, climate collapse, nuclear war that almost destroyed us. We survived because we learned to help each other, because we discovered that the strong have a responsibility to protect the weak, not exploit them. She turned to face the delegates. Every species in this galaxy will eventually face a crisis they cannot overcome alone. When that day comes, what kind of neighbors do you want? The kind who debate your strategic value, or the kind who show up with food and shelter and ask what they can do to help? Thork made a grinding sound deep in his thorax. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the general reached up and triggered his communication device. Thork to Drenth Fleet Command. Redirect supply vessel Hammer of Dawn to coordinates I am transmitting. Load all available emergency shield generators and radiation protection equipment. Authorization code Thork Prime 7. He looked at Foster. Our shields can protect ships and temporary structures from radiation. If you are going to evacuate planets, you will need protection for your refugee vessels while they load. Olin activated his own communicator. This is Merchant Prince Olin to the Trade Guild. I am authorizing emergency procurement protocols. Contact all Torvek vessels in the sector. We need cargo ships, medical supplies, and logistics coordination. Bill it to my personal accounts. The Halcyon Observer brightened to a brilliant white light. The Halcyon Science Collective will contribute our medical knowledge. We have extensive data on radiation sickness treatment across hundreds of species. We will also send hospital ships. Foster felt something tight in her chest release. She had hoped for help but had been prepared to do this alone. Now the galaxy was responding, not because they had to, but because they chose to. Thank you, she said simply, all of you. Thork's mandibles clicked in what might have been respect. Do not thank us yet, human. We still have to succeed. Show me your operational plans. If we are doing this, we are doing it properly. The Resolute broke away from Beacon Station 12 hours later, leading a fleet that had grown beyond anyone's expectations. 17 ships followed in formation. Drenth military cruisers with their shield generators repurposed for protection. Torvak merchant vessels loaded with additional supplies. Halcyon science ships bringing medical expertise. Even smaller species had contributed what they could, turning a human mission into a galactic effort. Foster stood on the bridge, coordinating with her newly expanded fleet. Communication channels filled with multiple languages and translation protocols working overtime. The organized chaos reminded her of home, of Earth's united government where dozens of nations had learned to work together despite their differences. Transition to faster than light in 5 minutes, her navigation officer reported. All ships confirm ready status. Through the bridge view screen, Foster could see the nearest of the doomed worlds. From this distance, it looked peaceful. A blue and green marble hanging in space, beautiful and fragile. The beings living there had no idea what was coming. No idea that their sky was filling with invisible death. Captain, we are receiving a transmission from the Drenth flagship, the communications officer said. Thork's image appeared on the screen. The general had returned to his own ship but maintained constant contact with the human vessel. Foster, my tactical staff has completed their analysis. The radiation wavefront will reach the first planet in 53 days. We have less time than you estimated. How much less? Pulsar 97 is more active than our initial scans showed. The radiation output is increasing. I give it 40 days before the surface becomes lethal, maybe less. Foster felt her stomach drop. 40 days to evacuate 3 planets. That was barely enough time even with the fleet they had assembled. Can we protect the planets themselves? Use the shield generators to create a barrier? Negative. The energy requirements would be astronomical. We could shield a city or maybe a small continent for a short time, but not an entire world. Not indefinitely. Then we evacuate everyone, all of them. Captain, Olen's voice joined the channel from his merchant vessel. Do you understand the scale? These three worlds have a combined population of over 2 million beings. Most are scattered across their planets in small communities. We would need hundreds of ships and perfect coordination. Then we get hundreds of ships and we coordinate perfectly, Foster said. What other option is there? Silence on the channel. Everyone knew the answer. There was no other option, not one that let them sleep at night. The fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, reality twisting around them as they exceeded the laws of normal space. 3 days of travel compressed into subjective hours. When they emerged, the doomed star system spread before them. The Halcyon science ships immediately began detailed scans of the 3 planets. The data they gathered painted a complex picture. The first world was home to a species similar to Earth's great apes, just beginning to develop basic tools and social structures. The second planet held an aquatic civilization, living in vast underwater cities built from coral and stone. The third world had a bird-like species who built massive nests in their planet's towering trees, creating communities that stretched across entire forests. None of them have radio technology, the Halcyon Observer reported. They will not understand what we are doing or why. This will be terrifying for them. Foster made a decision. Then we make it as gentle as possible. We show them we are here to help. We move slowly. We let them see that we are not threats. The fleet split up, each group heading to their assigned planet. The Resolute took the first world, the one with the ape-like species. Foster watched as they entered orbit, the ship's sensors mapping every settlement and community below. Deploy the first contact team, she ordered. Medical personnel only, no weapons. We go down, we show them we are peaceful, and we start saving lives. The shuttle descended through atmosphere, landing in a clearing near one of the larger settlements. The native beings emerged from their shelters cautiously, their eyes wide with fear and wonder. They stood upright like humans but were covered in thick fur, their hands and feet adapted for climbing. Foster was part of the landing team. She stepped off the shuttle slowly, her hands visible and empty. A translator device on her belt tried to make sense of the alien language, picking up sounds and gestures and attempting to find meaning. The natives gathered around, making soft hooting sounds. One of them, larger than the others and wearing what might have been decorative vines, approached Foster, a leader or elder perhaps. Foster knelt, making herself smaller and less threatening. She pulled out a water purification tablet and dropped it into a container of murky water from the nearby stream. The water cleared instantly, becoming safe to drink. She offered it to the elder. The alien sniffed the water suspiciously, then tasted it. Their eyes widened in surprise at the clean taste. They made a series of rapid gestures to the others, who began to relax slightly. Over the next hours, Foster's team demonstrated more of what they had brought: medicine that could heal wounds, food that would not spoil, tools that could make their lives easier. Each demonstration built trust, showing that the humans meant no harm. Meanwhile, in orbit, the Resolute deployed construction drones. They began building a refugee station in space, a temporary habitat that could house thousands while the evacuation proceeded. Other ships did the same at the other 2 planets, creating a network of safe havens. The work was exhausting. Days blurred together in a cycle of shuttles ascending and descending, carrying confused but cooperative aliens to safety. The Drenth shield generators protected the evacuation ships from increasing radiation levels. The Torvek merchants coordinated supply lines with efficiency that impressed even Foster. The halcyon medical teams treated the inevitable injuries and illnesses that came with such a massive operation. On day 23, disaster struck. A solar flare erupted from Pulsar 97 with unexpected intensity. Radiation levels spiked across the entire system, and every ship's alarms began screaming warnings. The first planet was directly in the path of the worst radiation. Foster watched the data with growing horror. A transport ship carrying 3,000 evacuees was still loading near the surface. If they tried to leave now, the radiation would fry their shields in minutes. If they stayed, the planet's atmosphere would begin breaking down, turning toxic within hours. All ships, emergency status. Foster ordered, "We need options and we need them now." The bridge of the Resolute became a center of controlled chaos. Officers worked their stations with desperate intensity, while sensor displays painted an increasingly grim picture. The radiation wave from the solar flare raced toward them at nearly the speed of light, deadly energy that would overwhelm any standard shielding. Transport vessel Dawn Carrier reports they need another 40 minutes to complete evacuation, the communications officer said, her voice tight with stress. The settlement is remote. The natives are frightened and moving slowly. Foster studied the tactical display. The transport ship was holding position in low orbit directly above the settlement, connected by shuttle traffic that moved refugees up to safety. It was the most efficient method, but it left them vulnerable. "Captain, if the Dawn Carrier tries to climb to higher orbit, they will be caught in the radiation before they reach safety," her tactical officer reported. "If they stay where they are, the atmospheric disruption will create storms violent enough to destroy them." Time until radiation impact. 37 minutes. Foster's mind raced through options. They could order the Dawn Carrier to abandon the remaining evacuees and save those already aboard. That would ensure 3,000 beings survived, but it would doom the thousands still on the surface. She looked at the sensor feed showing the settlement below. Families huddled together, being guided onto shuttles by human volunteers who had no idea what was coming. "Helm, plot a intercept course," Foster ordered. "Put us between the radiation wave and that transport." Her first officer turned sharply. "Captain, the Resolute's shields cannot handle that kind of radiation exposure. Not at this intensity. We could lose the ship." "Our shields are military grade, stronger than anything else in this fleet. If anyone can take the hit, we can." "For how long?" "Long enough." Foster activated the fleet-wide channel. "All ships, this is Captain Foster. The Resolute is moving to shield position. We will protect the Dawn Carrier while they complete evacuation. All other vessels move to safe distance and prepare to assist with damage control." Thorke's voice cut across the channel immediately. "Foster, that is suicide. Your shields will fail. Your hull will breach. You will kill everyone aboard your ship." "Not if we do it right," Foster said. She switched to her engineering channel. "Chief, I need you to route all available power to forward shields. Life support to minimum. Weapons offline. Every spare watt goes to keeping that radiation out." "Understood, Captain. We will give you everything we have." The Resolute broke orbit, its massive engines burning bright as it accelerated into position. Through the viewscreen, Foster could see the Dawn Carrier below, still connected to the surface by streams of shuttle traffic. The final evacuees were being loaded, people carrying whatever possessions they could manage, looking up at the sky that was about to betray them. 30 seconds to impact, Tactical called out, radiation levels climbing exponentially. Foster gripped her command chair. "All hands brace for impact, seal all compartments, emergency protocols active." The radiation wave hit them like a physical force. The Resolute's shields flared brilliant white, converting deadly energy into harmless light. But there was too much, far too much. Power consumption spiked as the shield generators struggled to maintain integrity. Forward shields at 80%, engineering reported. 75, 70. The ship groaned around them, metal stress singing as radiation pressure pushed against the hull. Lights flickered. Consoles sparked. But the Resolute held position, its bulk protecting the vulnerable transport ship below. Radiation penetrating outer shield layer, Tactical said. Secondary shields engaging. Foster watched the readings. They were bleeding power at an unsustainable rate. The ship's fusion cores were running beyond their safety margins, pumping energy into shields that were evaporating under the onslaught. Dawn Carrier reports final shuttle is docking, communications announced. They are preparing to break orbit. Tell them to go now. The transport ship's engines ignited. It climbed away from the planet, moving into the radiation shadow that the Resolute was creating with its own hull. Safe passage bought with every joule of power the battleship could generate. Forward shields at 40%, engineering said. Captain, we are approaching critical failure. If those shields collapse, the radiation will cook us. How long can we hold? Maybe 5 minutes, maybe less. The Resolute shuddered. An explosion somewhere in the lower decks sent tremors through the ship. Damage control teams rushed to contain it while the bridge crew fought to maintain their position. Then, impossibly, the radiation levels began to drop. Not by much, but enough to notice. Foster looked at the tactical display in confusion. Captain, I am reading new shield signatures, sensors reported. Multiple sources. They are overlapping with ours. Through the chaos, ships appeared on the viewscreen. Drenth military cruisers, their powerful shields extending outward to reinforce the Resolute's failing defenses. The combined barrier was stronger, more resilient. The pressure on the human ship eased immediately. Thork's voice came through clearly despite the interference. You humans are either the bravest or stupidest beings I have ever encountered. Probably both. Hammer of Dawn and Steel Wind are providing shield support. Hold your position. Foster felt relief wash over her. Thank you, General. Thank me by surviving. I have questions about your tactics that require you to be alive to answer. More ships joined the formation. Torvak merchants and Halcyon science vessels, adding their shields to the protective barrier. The fleet had seen what the humans were willing to risk and had responded in kind. Together, they created a wall of energy that held back the radiation's fury. The solar flare lasted another 20 minutes. By the time it passed, the Resolute was badly damaged. Hull plating had buckled. Shield generators had burned out. Whole sections of the ship were offline. But the crew was alive, and more importantly, so were all 4,000 evacuees on the Dawn Carrier. Foster sat in her command chair, exhausted but triumphant. Around her, the bridge crew began the process of damage assessment and repair prioritization. It would take weeks to fix everything, maybe months. Captain, communications said quietly, we are receiving a message from the surface of the third planet, the bird-like species. They have been watching what happened. What are they saying? The officer smiled. They are asking if the star spirits need help. They want to know how they can assist us. Foster felt tears prick her eyes. Beings who had no technology beyond basic tools, offering aid to the strangers who had come to save them. That was the galaxy she wanted to live in. One where compassion flowed in all directions, not just down from the powerful to the weak. Tell them yes, Foster said. Tell them we would be honored to accept their help. 63 days after leaving Beacon Station, the evacuation fleet began its journey home. The three worlds hung silent in space behind them, their surfaces already showing signs of radiation damage. Beautiful planets turning slowly toxic, monuments to what could have been lost. But nothing was lost. Every settlement had been evacuated, every community relocated. Over 2 million beings now occupied the temporary habitats that orbited safe planets far from the dying star. The Torvak had already begun negotiations for permanent settlement rights. The Halcyon were helping the rescued civilizations understand what had happened and what their futures held. It was chaotic and complicated and sometimes frustrating, but it was working. The Resolute limped alongside the other ships, its damage visible even from a distance. Scorch marks scarred the hull where shields had failed. Whole sections were sealed off, exposed to vacuum until proper repairs could be made. But the ship still flew, its crew still functioned, and Foster refused to let it fall behind. Ambassador Reeves had joined them for the return voyage, transferred from a Halcyon vessel. He stood on the bridge beside Foster, watching the rescued worlds shrink in the viewscreen. "The Council is in turmoil," Reeves said quietly. "Your actions have forced them to confront some uncomfortable truths about their priorities." "Good," Foster replied. "They needed confronting. The Halcyon have proposed new protocols for disaster response. The Torvak are establishing emergency supply networks. Even the Drenth are reconsidering their military doctrine." Reeves paused. "You changed something fundamental out here, Captain." Foster thought about the last 2 months. The exhaustion, the fear, the moment when she thought the Resolute might actually die shielding that transport, but also the moments of connection. Watching alien species who had never met before working together with perfect coordination. Seeing a Drenth warrior gentle his movements to avoid frightening a child from a species he had never encountered. The Torvak merchant who spent his own fortune buying medical supplies for people who could never repay him. "We just showed them what was possible," Foster said. "They did the rest themselves." "Beacon Station is requesting our arrival time," the communications officer reported. "They want to prepare a formal reception." Foster groaned. "Tell them we appreciate the thought, but we would prefer a quiet docking. My crew needs rest, not ceremony." "I don't think that's going to happen, Captain," Reeves said with a slight smile. "You are returning as heroes. The galaxy is watching." 3 days later, the fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel near Beacon Station. What they found waiting shocked even Foster into silence. Hundreds of ships surrounded the station, vessels from dozens of species, all holding position in a coordinated formation. As the Resolute approached, they began to move, creating a corridor of honor for the damaged battleship to pass through. "Captain, we are receiving transmissions," communications said, their voice awed. "From all the ships, they are broadcasting messages of gratitude and respect." The viewscreen filled with images, alien faces from across the galaxy, each offering thanks in their own language. Some Foster recognized from species who had helped with the evacuation. Others were completely new, civilizations that had only heard about what happened but wanted to express their appreciation. The Resolute moved slowly through the corridor of ships, its battered hull a testament to what it had endured. When it reached Beacon Station, the entire diplomatic corps was waiting at the main docking port. Foster emerged from the airlock to find herself facing an assembly that represented the full power and diversity of galactic civilization. But there were no speeches waiting, no formal addresses. Instead, something unexpected happened. Thork stepped forward first. The massive Drenth general moved with precise military bearing until he stood directly in front of Foster. Then slowly, he lowered himself until his head was level with hers. In Drenth culture, it was the highest sign of respect, a warrior acknowledging an equal. "You have taught this old soldier something valuable, human," Thork said. "Strength is not just about the ability to destroy. It is about the willingness to sacrifice for others. The Drenth will remember this lesson." He straightened and moved aside. Olin approached next, his scales shifting through colors that indicated deep emotion. "The Torvak measure worth in profit and loss," the merchant prince said. "But you have shown us that some transactions cannot be calculated in currency. The lives you saved, the example you set, these things are beyond price. My people are in your debt." The Halcyon observer floated forward, their light soft and warm. We pride ourselves on logic and reason. We analyze everything, categorize everything, understand everything. But we forgot the most important understanding of all, that compassion is not illogical, that helping others is not wasteful, that mercy is not weakness. Thank you for reminding us. One by one, representatives from dozens of species came forward. Each offered thanks in their own way, some with words, others with gestures that their translators struggled to convey. The ceremony was spontaneous and heartfelt, more powerful than any formal reception could have been. Finally, Ambassador Reeves stepped forward. He held a data tablet containing an official document. The Galactic Council has voted unanimously to establish the Emergency Response Initiative, he announced. A permanent organization dedicated to providing aid during disasters and crises. It will be funded by contributions from all member species and will operate under protocols developed based on the Resolute mission. He paused, looking directly at Foster. The Council has also voted to designate humanity as guardian species. This is a title that has not been granted in over 300 years. It recognizes your species' commitment to protecting all life, regardless of strategic value or political alignment. Foster felt the weight of that responsibility settle onto her shoulders. Guardian species. It meant humanity would be looked to for leadership in times of crisis. It meant their actions would be held to the highest standards. It meant they could never again stand aside when others needed help. "We accept," she said simply, "with honor and humility." The assembled delegates responded with sounds of approval in a dozen different languages. The ceremony gradually dissolved into something more informal as species mingled and talked, discussing the future and what this new era might bring. Foster slipped away quietly, returning to the Resolute's bridge. Through the viewscreen, she could see Earth in the distance, a small blue world that had somehow produced a species willing to risk everything for strangers. Her crew was scattered throughout the ship, resting or working on repairs. Good people who had followed her into danger without hesitation, who had held their positions while radiation threatened to kill them all, who had proven that humanity's greatest strength was not their weapons or their technology, but their unwillingness to abandon those in need. The communications officer approached with a message. "Captain, we are receiving a transmission from Earth. Government wants to know when we will be home." Foster smiled. "Tell them soon. We have some repairs to make first, but tell them we are coming home, and we are bringing proof that the galaxy is better than we hoped." She looked out at the stars, thinking about the millions of lives they had saved, the civilizations given a second chance, the connections forged between species that had been strangers, all because humanity had looked at a crisis and decided that doing nothing was not acceptable. The Resolute would fly again, the damage would be repaired, and when the next crisis came, because there would always be a next crisis, humanity would answer the call, not because they had to, not because it benefited them strategically, but because it was the right thing to do. And in a galaxy full of difficult choices, sometimes the right choice was also the simplest one. Help those who need it, protect those who cannot protect themselves, stand firm when others would walk away. That was what it meant to be human. That was what it meant to be a guardian species. And the galaxy was better for it.